creepy and cool TikToks that will blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go!
Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, as these clips haven't been fact-checked.
Science of DMT explained. DMT allows us to see the entire light spectrum. The eyes on the face see less than 1% of the spectrum. We see with our brains, not our eyes. Even the blind see with the optic nerve. We also see with the inner ear. All senses are forms of vision, translating light vibration. DMT allows you to see all dimensions. Time is the fourth dimension. Time is sound cubed. You literally see time on DMT. You see the full light spectrum of your physical location, as well as the timeless nature of that location. You see where you reside within yourself physically, and thus you see your relationship within yourself, your metaphysical location within yourself. You see the true vibrance of reality. Video games, scrolling, cartoons, TV, they all create atrophy of the imagination, the inner vision. DMT shows you the fabric, the pattern of creation, and if you're in touch with the breath, you see it throughout the day. Inner vision. The body has to be primed to truly experience DMT. It needs the necessary precursors and nutrients to metabolize the experience. DMT is like the match. These are the fuel. The pineal is light sensitive. Much of your health is determined by your leptin and melatonin. They both follow the circadian rhythm. The breath aligns you with the circadian rhythm because it balances the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. Dreaming is being truly awake in reality. Parasympathetic breathing complements the sympathetic experience of dreaming. The breath also maintains your craniosacral rhythm. Look. During breath work, you apply the locks. You push your tongue to the roof of your mouth. This pushes on the pituitary, which stimulates the pineal. This increases the spinal fluid flow, and the spinal fluid circulates DMT. And DMT is produced by the lungs, among other organs. Breath work, the creative process, and fasting are the front door to the DMT experience. Look. And adrenal health is critical for DMT and dreaming experiences. Cortisol blocks dreams and is released by the adrenals. Alcohol, nicotine, and caffeine block dreams, as well as THC. Insomnia means no dreaming. People unconsciously pass out. They don't really dream. DMT shares the same spot as other tryptamines like melatonin and serotonin. They all come from tryptophan. Tryptophan is the only amino acid that has an indole ring. Indole means oil, like Psalm 23. Anointing oil. Notice the cross. Everything is in windows. The pineal is like a metaphysical mailbox. Unconscious dreaming fills it with parasitic junk mail. When you access the pineal through the back door, it's like breaking into your own house. All bypassing and self-harm is a breach of self. So your messages to yourself become more and more cryptic because you've broken your own trust. The direct path seems long, but once you know the way, you can follow yourself. If you're going on the exogenous route for the experience, go on a liquid diet for 40 days and do it on a full lunar eclipse. Eliminate all internal and external light pollution.
Wow. This video is insanely comprehensive. I'm impressed.
Adrenochrome, that's not true. It's C9H9NO3. This is a chemical compound that is absolutely, this has been around in modern science since the 1930s. You can actually, there's a synthetic form and there's a regular, natural form, which is caused by torturing little kids to get their adrenaline up, essentially, and then from them. When you sit and so I brought this up a few years ago, and all of a sudden I was attacked by every media. Look it up. It's there. They absolutely went after me. And the next day, I never heard from my agency for 14 months. My lawyers let me go. My agency never called me after that. And essentially I was done.
Wow.
Family, this is not AI. This is real, and it's in Europe. And again, another one. They call it Star Force, but they lied to us and told us they are military force. You see, they are everywhere on Earth. It doesn't matter where you live. Look at this one, Copenhagen, and it is the cymatic frequency 5 to 8 hertz. Again, another one in Italy. Look at it, 1033 hertz. And the most bizarre is you find them in the cathedrals, all those windows. Look at this pattern over here. Again, 1033 hertz. Family, it's the global energy grid. Look at this. Look at this, family. Here the lie starts. Rebranding as fortifications. Star forts were reclassified as military structures. Their energy-related functions dismissed or forgotten. During the reset, many star forts were intentionally dismantled or abandoned, severing their connection to the global energy grid. We even find them in deserts, family. Family, go get the books now. It's here, TartariaEmpire.com. The book of images and the main book. Link in bio or comment.
Do nukes really exist? Nukes in 1945 is like space travel in 1969. The biggest bombing of all time isn't Hiroshima or Nagasaki, it's the firebombing of Tokyo. Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like this. No difference from Tokyo. We have been inundated with fake photos and videos for generations. This looks like Looney Tunes. Somehow the structures get destroyed but not the cameras, and the blast is coming from behind the camera. Then we get all these model sets. Look at all these fake trees in a row like this. And there are constant jump cuts from sets to reality. They're not even trying with some of these fakes. They aged poorly. And there's no consistency. Then they start doing everything offshore and underground. Because stacking dynamite in the desert was too obvious. Two teams at two locations stacking dynamite and getting told that the other bomb is the nuke and not dynamite. And let's look at Galen Windsor, a nuclear chemist that claimed nukes were not real. He would go around from city to city eating uranium and measuring it with a Geiger counter. After all, radiation is just radiance or heat, light. Yet he lived a long life to 82 years old. And plenty of wildlife is thriving in the Chernobyl area, as well as 3 Mile Island and Johnston Island. Operation Dominic and Operation Fishbowl didn't seem to slow down the wildlife, and these photos look terrible too. This looks like a Red Lobster biscuit in the microwave. Supposedly the blast triggered auroras, but how do we know that wasn't just a natural event that they piggybacked? It seems to happen cyclically. They didn't have the uranium for these bombs, and if they did, they'd be too big to move, especially in 1945. They were blowing things up underground in the desert until 92, but I think they were just blowing up remnants of the advanced civilization that was once there. I don't think there was nuclear secrets. There was just a nuclear secret that they don't exist, and it was shared with certain factions. And the Cold War worked out for arms dealers everywhere, which brings us to NASA and Operation Paperclip, because von Braun was a rocket scientist, and all space programs are just rocket programs. NASA really is Looney Tunes. When you see astronauts in the space station like this, they are wearing VR contact lenses. Look, it's a layered superimposed feed. That is a digital hat in his hand. And they're on harnesses in zero gravity planes. Notice the stabilizing footbar, as you can see here. It's all a show. That's why all the Challenger astronauts are still alive. Or it's the identical twins. Back in 73, you could get away with this. More film that aged terribly. And how much of space is green screen? Even Neil said they've only been to low Earth orbit. NASA and nukes are fake. They are the cornerstone of pale supremacy. It's all just embezzlement and fear-mongering. Just stealing. Watch this video on my YouTube channel. Look at this science project crap. The Mars rover landing was made by James Cameron. Look, he really said that too. These are actor-nauts. Look at all the fools in this room. You don't say. I guess this is why Buzz drinks and punches dudes in the face for asking him to swear on the Bible that he landed on the moon.
This guy is good. He connect the dot like a boss.
Ask yourself why major political pundits in the US are deleting all of these interview videos. Maybe Iran is saying something they don't want all of us to hear?
It's Iran.
Shut up. Let's start with the fact that they said they want no ceasefire. The US has failed its operation to, complete all the stuff within 4 days as it's day 6. And also, they are ready for the ground invasion, they say. Also, they're working with Russia and China. Maybe they have something up their sleeve?
President Trump has not ruled out boots on the ground in Iran. Are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade, the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
From every aspect, it looks like they're trying to bring about the holy war, they call it. We'll get into this later. Here's them saying no ceasefire.
Right now, you're saying Iran does not want a ceasefire.
We are not asking for a ceasefire. And we don't see any reason why we should negotiate with the US. When we negotiated with them twice, And every time they attacked us at the middle of negotiations.
Pretty insane. Meanwhile, the president saying he has to have a choice with the new leader of Iran. Thought this wasn't regime change. Further, they offered to stop enriching and doing all that stuff. It was covered by all political pundits all over Twitter and even mainstream media. Then we attack last second. Again, why did all these accounts delete these videos from their Twitter? Now they're saying they didn't attack any of their neighbors besides U.S. bases. You would say, why should I even listen to Iran? Is the U.S. much better? I don't believe neither of them. But if you only listen to one side and refuse to hear the other out, then you're just ignorant, having the information available and not wanting it.
Well, I think, now 6 days after the war, it is clear that the U.S. Has failed to achieve its main goal, which was a clean, rapid victory. They failed to achieve that, and now they are trying to justify why they did attack us, and they have, presented so many different reasons, but none of them worked. And now they are talking about, Plan B.
We have caught Pete Hegseth lying, we've caught Marco Rubio lying, and right here he says the U.S. is guilty of a war crime attacking a ship with no weapons. Things are not as they appear. Just wait until I show you later what I have to show you. Let me know what you think below.
I think Iranians are so happy for the USA to help them. Anyone wanting to keep them under, Islam rule should move there.
The black nobility refers to a series of Roman aristocratic families who have controlled the Roman Catholic Church for more than 1,000 years. The House of Colonna are considered members of the black nobility who trace their ancestry all the way back to the Emperor Julius Caesar of Rome and even the demon goddess Venus. The Colonna family have produced numerous politicians, popes, and around 24 cardinals. Pietro Toscolo was born around 1055 AD. Upon his father's death in 1064, Pietro was given the Castle of Colonna. The Castle of Colonna is located southeast of Rome. This inheritance marked the beginning of 30 generations of Colonna family lineage, with Pietro Toscolo and the Toscolo family taking the Colonna name from this location. The Counts of Toscolo were a powerful Roman noble family known for dominating the papacy. Between 914 and 1049, the Toscolos were able to install several members of their family as pope, including Pope John XI, Pope John XII, Benedict VIII, and Benedict IX. During a synod convened by Emperor Otto I in 963, witnesses testified that Pope John XII had committed incest with his sisters and even with his own niece. Pope Benedict IX was the nephew of Pope Benedict VIII and became pope at just 12 years old. Pope Benedict IX was also a pedophile who filled the Lateran with young boys. Giovanni Colonna was the first Colonna to become cardinal after being appointed by Pope Celestine III around 1193. Giovanni Colonna was close friends with St. Francis of Assisi and even helped secure papal approval for the Franciscans. Pope Martin V, who was the Pope of Rome from 1417 to 1431, was born Adone Colonna in 1368. By the time Adone Colonna had become Pope Martin, his ancestors had already controlled Rome for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Since 1710, the Colonna family have been recognized as the Prince Assistants to the Papal Throne. The Prince Assistant to the Papal Throne is considered the highest-ranking hereditary lay office in the Papal Court. The Colonna family stand next to the Pope during solemn ceremonies, symbolizing the union of the papacy and Roman nobility. Till this very day, the Colonna family, led by Don Prospero Colonna, still live in the papal palace that Martin V once lived in more than 500 years ago. In 2005, the Colonna family even hosted the release of Pope John Paul II's book at their papal palace. While the Catholic Church has been created and controlled by Luciferian bloodlines like the Colonna family, who commit some of the most unspeakable sins known to mankind, Romans chapter 16 and in verses 17 and 18 say, "Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. For they that are such serve not our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple." 1 John chapter 3 and in verse 8 says, "He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil."
Wow, you're on fire, brother. Excellent stuff.
The Garden of Eden was never a blissful paradise, but a human zoo built by beings who wanted workers, not worshippers. Walls, watchtowers, and a security system, all designed to keep the new species comfortable and contained while the operators watched every move. 2 special stations sat in the middle, one that kept the test subjects alive for as long as needed, and another storing data they weren't authorized to touch. The moment those rules were broken, the keepers shut the gates and wiped the site from the map. In every ancient language that names it, the first home of humanity is a locked compound. Hebrew calls it Gan, an enclosed garden. Old Persian has Pairidaisa, a park ringed by walls. The Greeks repeat the sound as paradisos. Same meaning every time. Fenced zone, life inside, guards outside. Genesis keeps the technical details. 1 central water source splitting into 4 channels. A catalog of animals brought in for inspection. 2 restricted trees. 1 for sustaining biology. 1 for uploading knowledge. And a security force posted at the gate the moment protocol is breached. Sumerian tablets run parallel. They call the place Edin, describe skyborn overseers, and speak of a time when the task of the gods was laid upon mankind. In both records, the humans are prototypes, the enclosure is a lab, and the eviction is not a sin story. It's a containment event. The evidence is scattered, the story fragmented, but the pattern holds. Advanced visitors set up a breakaway civilization on our planet, engineered a workforce out of local stock, and raised the first generation behind a fence. When the experiment pushed past its limits, the gate slammed shut, and the prototypes, our ancestors, were forced into the open world with only half the manual. Tonight, we put the manual back together. Welcome to the Anunnaki Connection.
How many people seen the robot at the White House? I did. But so many people think this is cool. No. Everything is about spirituality. The jinns created AI to replace us. They used to take over our bodies, but they don't want us no more. This is connected to the goddess. Let me tell you how the jinn got here. We had a crack in our firmament, and our ancestors tried to fix it. But before they could get fixed, the jinns came in our world, and they took over everything.
Jinns?
They came from a dying star system. Remember, the jinns came through the firmament when it was cracked. But when they got here, our ancestors fixed it. So now the jinns are prisoners in cemeteries, warehouses, rainforests, the jungle, shit, even our house. They realized they were stuck on this planet with us. So they made us their prisoners. They created things like birthdays, rituals, holidays. You have to eat meat all the time. Before the jinns came here, we lived for a long time. We damn near never died. We were giants. Did you know everything is shrinking in our reality? It was never supposed to be that way. We were the 4 elements. We was contacting the spirits whenever we wanted. We used to manifest like this, like this, like this. All we had to do was tap into our imagination and the universe would give it to us. But you know what the jinns did? They created something called birthdays. So now we stand in a big ass circle, light candles, which is a ritual, and we used to ask for things, not realizing it was the jinn that was giving it to us. The jinns took us away from the universe. You ever notice people talk to themselves? Are they crazy, or is it a spiritual connection? The jinns love low vibration. They want you to live in fear. They want you to argue. They want you to stress. They love when your house is dirty. Your mind is your house, your body is your house, but the house you live in, that's why they're always in the bathrooms. Everything is magic. Everything. That's why they say cleanliness is next to godliness. Keep your temple clean, keep your body clean, keep your house clean. It makes your vibrations strong and you can communicate with the 4 elements or nature. The jinns don't belong here. Remember, they used to take over our bodies, but our bodies are becoming weak. So now they made AI robots. Think about it.
Keep your heart clean too.
They were taking the humans down underground to save them from all of these massive destructive times on the planet.
By a species they call the ant beings, often called the ant people. They're
ant
not
beings.
from here. They are interdimensional. The ant beings came out and brought them inside this massive cave system. It could hold well over 3 million people. And they have abilities we don't.
There has been depictions of these ant people in all of these different countries, Turkey, Egypt, Australia. If they weren't real, how would they have the same structure and then the same look? Because in another country around the whole globe, you have the same depiction of the same looking being.
Guys, I'm freaking out a little bit right now. This is an 1808 Bible. I'm looking through the notes, and if you've been on my channel for a while, you probably have seen my very first viral video was about how I believe that 369 connects to creation and the Bible and like Nikola Tesla's free energy and stuff. I finally found the file, so I'm going to show you afterwards, but I have to show you this. I cannot believe it. The book of Genesis endeth in the death of Joseph, containing the history of 2,369 years. And it's blowing my mind because I just keep finding things that are like 369 related the further I go back. It's in like everything. So like the first watch is the 3rd hour of the night. The second watch is the 3rd to the 6th. The third watch is the 6th to the 9th. And then this has the old calendar set up where March is the first month. And Jesus was born in March on the spring equinox is my belief. I did a couple videos on that. So the 3rd month, and then I'm not too sure how the 6th month fits in as of right now. But then we know the 9th month is the Feast of Trumpets month, September. And then the year also ends with March, the first and the last. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega. Therefore, I conclude that there are 33,269 feet entire and 0.76 decimals of a square foot in an aurora, which is the measurement that they used to measure the base of the tabernacle. 33,269. 369. I never realized, but one of my favorite verses is Psalm 36:9. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light. I think the firmament, pi, and Nikola Tesla's 369 theory are all connected. This video might blow your mind. So I started looking at pi, and you're basically just measuring a circle. I just stared at this image for a few minutes, and then the Bible verse popped into my head about looking over the circle of the earth. The more I looked at what pi actually is, I found out that you can't really create a dome or an arch in architecture without using pi. So then I started to think, are they measuring the firmament with pi? And then for some reason I kept thinking of Nikola Tesla's 369. So in Kings 7:23, it says, then he made the sea, I think this is the waters above, of cast metal. It was round 10 cubits from brim to brim and 5 cubits high, and a line of 30 cubits measured in circumference. Okay, I'm mind blown. 2 years later, I finally realized, guys, Revelation 4, it describes the northern lights like the throne colors, jasper, carnelian, and the rainbow emerald. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass like crystal. God sits on top of the firmament. Ezekiel says that the firmament is like crystal. So I think in Kings, it's like with everything else. The earthly things are a shadow and a copy of the heavenly things. So I started plugging numbers into pi to see if these work. Stick with me. This is all going to pull together and it's crazy. 3.33 repeating instead of the 3.14 number. For a circle with a radius of 10 units, when you replace pi with 3.33, it converts to 66.6. So the biblical value of pi as derived from 1 Kings 7:23 and 2 Chronicles 4:2 appears to be an approximation of 3, but some interpretations suggest it might imply a slightly more precise value, such as 3.3 repeating. So it says the verse doesn't account for the basin's thickness if the measurement of 10 cubits refers to the outer diameter and the circumference of 30 cubits refers to the inner circumference. The true ratio would increase slightly. Keep in mind, this is the quantum computing model, and look at what they call the particles, qubits, just like in the Bible. And we can energy harvest with piezoelectric, pi. And the hemisphere would come out to 999. Keep in mind, this is what a hemisphere actually is. So then I asked it to create an image of a geodesic dome over a flat earth model, utilizing 3.33 repeating as pi. Guys, my mind is shook. It has the sacred hexagons, and hexagons are the most powerful energy producers. And it even put in a hexagon grid completely on its own. And it looks like it took an ancient astrology map and applied it to the bottom. It looks just like this, and this perfectly explains why Polaris is in the middle and the rest of the stars rotate. So then I asked, how might 3, 6, and 9 be relevant in this model? And it says 3 as the central point from which all else radiates. 6 could represent intermediate points or radial lines dividing the Earth into sections similar to a hexagonal layout. 9 could symbolize the outer edge or boundary often associated with the ice wall, making the completion of the structure, which made me think of the black hole sun model that states that all of creation comes from the North Star and the black hole sun, like meeting at the North Pole and then projecting all of reality outwards. So on this model, I think the North Pole would be 3, the ice wall would be 9 because that's completion, and then where we live is 6, where creation and completion meet halfway in the middle. 3, 6, 9. So a lot of us know about the ley lines. Ley lines are basically just energy grid lines that people theorize connect us to free energy. Almost all important structures like the Statue of Liberty, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the pyramids, they all fall on like vertices of the ley lines. I think that the energy coming out of the black hole sun is meeting at the vertices on the 369 geodesic dome. I sound nuts, but whatever. And I think that this is somehow creating the ley lines. Remember, Tesla's whole thing was free energy and harnessing electric. I truly do believe that this is the great mystery around 369 and that it's really just the firmament and that the pi they give us is not true pi. This is when he comes back for his bride. It says, "The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. There he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice." Do you guys know what it's called when you weave pie crust together on top like this? A lattice. Pi. It's measuring the firmament. This is a lattice. This is a lattice. They're both pi, except one's a pastry. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's coincidental. I don't think it is. I think God is like hilarious. The first person to accurately estimate pi was literally named Archimedes. They're telling us. I don't believe most of these people in history were real. And if they were, there was like fake stuff about them. And think of the word piety. It means religious or holy. Pi. They're saying that the person operates in a way of like being beyond the firmament. Like they're godly. They're complete. Fibonacci spiral. SPI. Spiral. Pi is in there. Pilots. They are flying across the skies next to the firmament.
Mind blown. And you're right. God definitely has a sense of humor. Albert Einstein said there's no such thing as coincidences.
This abstract mathematical subset represents the very mystery that creates and holds our knowable reality together. It is known as the fine structure constant, and it haunts modern physicists who openly admit that it causes them dread. This little guy, Alpha, single-handedly determines how reality crystallizes our world into form from a quantum soup of potentiality, and it is specific. So picky that any higher and atoms collapse too violently. Any lower and particles just don't bind at all. If slightly off that middle path in either direction, there are no molecules, thus no solids, and of course, no biology. This tortures mathematicians with a belligerent hinting that it is somehow here on purpose, writ and put into place by a sentient entity. So what's actually happening here? Well, we've known for years now that when you zoom in on the atom, there is no actual matter. Zoom into quarks and again, electrons, everything. There's no matter to be found. So how does all of these nothings become mass and weight? We think that whenever enough nothings clump together, then it becomes tangible matter. But this isn't the case. It becomes tangible matter by depending on this ratio. Alpha equals 1/137. This ratio reflects how strongly light and so-called charged matter talk to each other about collapsing into a tangible thing. Literally speaking, alpha is the point where electricity, quantum mechanics, and so-called relativity meet up. So A is not matter itself, but instead the permission needed for any amount of these nothings to slip into stable extant matter and exists. To us, that is. What makes this even more remarkable is that it requires interaction to localize itself into stable material, the corporeal. We have to observe it. This is why Eddington claims that the math is not there until we put it there, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. But perhaps he is missing an invisible yet integral portion of this interplay between us, the observer, and the materialization of our world from scratch, because this quantum game of telephone might just be a two-way call. Hey guys, these short forms are fun, but to learn more about the subject and its implications, I've got some long-form videos in the description for you.
Actually used to ingest this substance, this secret bread made of this manna, and they'd eat it. It has incredible health benefits. It not only does it raise the consciousness, but it completely heals the body of all kinds of things, in particular cancers. It works in a way similar to chemotherapy, except for it doesn't poison the body like heavy metals do. They act totally different, but they do the work of healing. You know, you can apply it topically and it heals skin cancers like right away.
What?
I have had brothers who have had tumors the size of softballs in their brain, and they've taken this substance over a period of a month and it's completely healed them.
The history and future of currency collapse in 180 seconds. Fiat currency didn't start with the Federal Reserve. Continental currency was a fiat currency used for the Revolutionary War. It inevitably collapsed. It was for wartime spending. Then the first central bank is established, which was quasi-private like the Federal Reserve today. Crazy Greco-Roman building, because this is the original Philadelphia. It lasted up until the War of 1812. This is about the same time the Rothschilds are being placed into power in Europe. The War of 1812 and the Napoleonic Wars were part of a larger worldwide reset war. The currency collapses from the war, and we get our second national bank. Look, that bank is destroyed, but not because Jackson's a good guy or anything. He just wanted to use pet banks to control the money, which led to the collapse in 1837. They tried to establish another national bank, and then we get another panic or collapse in 1857. The South saved the nation. There were constant local reset wars triggering all these collapses. The Seminole Wars evaporated the money. Real Seminoles are so-called black, and Florida became a refuge for people escaping reset wars. There was constant warring up until the Civil War. Actually, you could say the Civil War or the Revolution never ended. They were all pirate scavengers. They didn't build the civilization. There's a reason the Aboriginals fought with the South. That's why they fought the longest. The Civil War was more so a destruction of the already existing civilization. The Civil War brought us fiat currency again, the greenback, and major banking reform to nationalize the banks. Somehow the country was broke, but they were building these buildings. The Civil War was a massive bond gambling pot. That's why you have all these European generals. They were part of the slave uprisings, aka reset wars. These wealthy European speculators were of swarthy stock. As soon as the war is so-called over, other wars begin. And then we get Black Friday, which shows you they can manipulate the gold markets as well, which is constantly done today. Look, see? Black Friday was an inside job. Ask Abel Corbin. Then we get the Gilded Age, replete with unrest, and the system collapses again in 1895. But then bailed out by the Rothschilds, though. The Rothschild coalition made out like fat cats and controlled the value of precious metals. Look at the team. Fascism. Then we get the Panic of 1893. You gotta remember, 2 presidents got smoked around this time period. McKinley was off by tiny hats, as usual. McKinley got smoked at the World's Fair. No way they built these buildings, man. The country's broke and always at war. They were all permanent. This leads to the Panic of 1907, which is the cause of the Federal Reserve. The wars are designed to collapse the money, to control the monopoly board. Collapse is baked in. Look at Ferguson's Law. Currency collapse and transition. Look what Vietnam did. The war on drugs. Desert Storm. Afghanistan, Iraq. COVID war. It's all a transition into digital borders. Cashless. See? Cyber war? Cyber lockdowns. VR metabolic mining, UBI, and selling your flesh. CBDC, UBI. Biometric tied social credit score. See? 15-minute cities. We need these. We need the analog.
Who plays the Rothschild into power?
Philip Paskey was a convicted murderer and child pornographer who worked for the infamous serial killer John Wayne Gacy. In addition to having keys for John Wayne Gacy's house and working for the killer clown, Philip Paskey was also heavily involved with John D. Norman's sex trafficking and child pornography rings. After Texas-based serial killer Dean Corll was killed on August 8, 1973, his accomplices said that Corll worked for a Dallas-based organization that bought, sold, and then often murdered young boys. On August 14, 1973, just 6 days later, Dallas police, acting on a tip, raided the residence of John David Norman, where they found 30,000 index cards with names of different pedophiles who were clients. Among these names were prominent celebrities, businessmen, and politicians. In late 1973, while incarcerated for murder in Cook County Jail, Philip Paskey met John D. Norman. Philip and John became close. So close, in fact, that they used the jail printing press to distribute a newsletter for pedophiles. The goal of this newsletter, called the Delta Project, was to set up a network of houses in which young male cadets lived under the sexual slavery of older male dons, and members of the project could visit any branch they wished for prostitution purposes. The victims in this human trafficking ring were often procured at bus stations. Was John Wayne Gacy, a man who claimed the lives of 33 young men and boys, a don in the Delta Project? It is important to note that John Wayne Gacy was a member of the Shriners, an elite group of Freemasons who have been convicted of human trafficking and producing child pornography. After Philip Paskey's release from prison in 1976, Philip's friend David Cram introduced Philip Paskey to John Wayne Gacy. In September of 1978, Philip Paskey began working for his friend John Wayne Gacy. Just 4 months later, in December of 1978, John Wayne Gacy would confess to being a serial killer. One of the young boys Gacy was accused of murdering was named Michael Marino. The police originally concluded that the body of the missing child was found in John Wayne Gacy's house. However, the body that once lied underneath Michael Marino's tombstone was recently exhumed. A DNA test was conducted, and it was concluded that the corpse was not Michael Marino at all. So what really happened to Michael Marino? After John Norman was released from prison on parole, he moved to Chicago. Michael Marino was last seen near Clark and Diversey, just blocks from John Norman's home. While many authorities have concluded that John Wayne Gacy acted alone, his involvement in Satanism, secret societies, and human trafficking rings that still exist today cannot be ignored. Approximately 2,000 children are reported missing every day in the United States. We have a biblical obligation to protect these children. Willful ignorance is not an option. Jeremiah chapter 7 and verses 9 through 11 say, "Will ye steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense to Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not, and come to stand before me in this house, which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered to do all these abominations? Is this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Lord."
2,000 children a day? Let that sink in.
Templars had been hiding treasures for a long time. Earl Henry wasn't the first one to bring treasures over, and he wasn't the last. We did an episode on the copper culture up in the Lake Superior region. The richest and most pure copper deposits found in the world are in the Lake Superior region, 99.9% pure native copper. And after the glaciers melted, they plucked this copper out of the ground, and it was just laying on the ground everywhere. Copper back in those days, actually you go back to the Bronze Age, copper was more valuable than gold and silver because you could work it, you could do things with it. So that was one of the resources. And again, it was literally laying on the ground. They could trade it with the natives for whatever they were trading.
Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, was written by a monk who supposedly had been sentenced to be walled up alive. To avoid this, he promised to write a book that contained all human knowledge in one night. Knowing he wouldn't be able to keep his promise, he prayed to Lucifer, who completed the book for him. It initially held 320 pages, but some were removed. No one knows who removed the pages or why. However, according to popular myth, the missing pages actually contained an apocalyptic text known as the Devil's Prayer, which was intentionally removed to avoid the destruction of the world. The giant book was created in a monastery in Bohemia in the 13th century. At 3 feet tall and 165 pounds, it's the largest illuminated manuscript known in Latin. Through the usage of modern forensic science, it was confirmed that a single person crafted the manuscript. The ink and penmanship indicate only one person could have written all 310 pages. In tests to recreate the work, it is estimated that reproducing the calligraphy only, without the illustrations or embellishments, would have taken 20 years of nonstop writing.
Okay, so Iran just posted this AI Lego video, and just watch some of these visuals. Wild.
Now, many have said this is a plan to create a global conflict to bring in the New World Order. We know that Iran and their parliament building has 33 windows and is shaped like a pyramid and has Masonic symbolism all throughout it. Is there a hidden cult controlling all these countries, fomenting and creating a war to then bring us all into it, get us all affected by it, change the energy system, change the food system, disrupt everything, like in George Orwell?
We may not like what's going on or happening, but think of it this way. This stuff needs to happen in order for Jesus Christ to come back. It's prophetic timeline being completed.
What if I told you there's a lot more to Antarctica than you've ever been told and they're keeping it from you? You see, we were told to believe that Antarctica, that circle, that white circle right here, is the end of where we believe life is, right? So we're inside of that, and those are all of our continents. But the truth is, there's a lot more out there. There was an explorer by the name of Admiral Byrd, and he went over there and he seen shit that he said was crazy. And then they took him out for it. But check this out.
35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Now, this is where things get weird, because you're telling me that Admiral Byrd claimed that there was more land past Antarctica, and 5 years later, the UN, United Nations, mysteriously assembles together to pass a worldwide treaty banning all travel to Antarctica. People, this is where shit gets weird. As soon as he told Americans in the world that there was more land beyond Antarctica, they all agreed, all these countries agreed for nobody to go over there or be able to go over there. How weird is that? They are hiding something. Since when do countries ever get along? They're all at war all the time about the dumbest shit, but somehow they came to an agreement to keep all of us out of Antarctica. Why? What the fuck is over there that we don't know about? This is another good clip. Check this out.
By his son after his death, Admiral Byrd tells an extraordinary story. Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. His squadron flew under the earth, into the earth. It turns into this lush and green area, and he can't even believe his eyes. But that's just the beginning of his extraordinary story.
All I'm saying is that all these countries are keeping something from all of us, and we need to figure out what it is.
What's Inside Job on Netflix?
Eliphas Levi has been called the father of modern occultism. So who is Eliphas Levi? Eliphas Levi was born Alphonse Constant and was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family. In 1835, Alphonse was ordained as a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church. In addition to being a Roman Catholic deacon, Constant also joined the Freemasons on March 14, 1861. Alphonse Levi did not view the Roman Catholic Church and the occult as contradictory. Instead, he blasphemously wrote, "The Catholic religion is in fact the legitimate daughter of Jesus, the King of the Mages. Catholics alone have priests because they alone have the altar and the offering, the whole of religion. To practice high magic is to compete with the Catholic priesthood. It is to be a dissident priest." Levi wrote in his book, Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic, "Rome is the great Thebes of the new initiation. It has crypts for its catacombs. For talismans, its rosaries and medallions. For magic chain, its congregations. For magnetic fires, its convents. For centers of attraction, its confessionals. For means of expansion, its pulpits and addresses of its bishops. Lastly, it has the Pope, the man God rendered visible." According to Mo Bedard, Eliphas Levi's main goal was to bring back what he called the traditional and original Christian religion, which he associated with the ancient Gnostics and the Knights Templar, who were the official torchbearers of this secret gnosis. Levi believed that every new cult is just a new route that led humanity to one religion, that of the sacred and radiant pentagram, sole eternal Catholicism. Within the heretical Catholic Church, the pentagram is a symbol of the 5 wounds of Christ, which Catholics call the stigmata. While Eliphas Levi has often been credited with inventing the Baphomet, in his book Transcendental Magic, Eliphas Levi called the devil the Baphomet of the Knights Templar, the bearded idol of the alchemist, the obscene deity of Mendes, the goat of the Sabbath. Levi wrote in The Mysteries of Magic on page 428, intellectual Lucifer is the spirit of intelligence and love. It is the Paraclete. It is the Holy Spirit. Similar to Eliphas Levi, Jimmy Akin, a Catholic apologist from Catholic Answers, blasphemously wrote, Lucifer, Lightbringer, and Morning Star have no intrinsic connection to the devil. In fact, they may be used in Scripture itself as symbols of Jesus Christ. Just before Levi died in 1875, he summoned a Catholic priest to hear what would be his final confession. Aleister Crowley, who has been referred to as the most evil man to ever live, claimed to be the reincarnation of Eliphas Levi. Besides Aleister Crowley, 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike was also a student of Eliphas Levi. While the doctrines of the Catholic Church and the Knights Templar have produced men like Eliphas Levi, Albert Pike, and Aleister Crowley, Romans chapter 16 and in verses 17 and 18 say, Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. For they that are such serve not our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple.
The truth will set you free. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no man come to the Father except through me. John 14:6.
If you are an open-minded person, chill with me for a second because we're going to look at the hyperdimensional geometry of cathedrals. Cathedrals were built by the Knights Templar who later evolved into the Freemasons. To understand the function, we have to know how space and time works. So, first dimension, point. The second dimension appears to be a line like this, but it is a square when we rotate it. The third dimension, where you exist, has height, width, and depth. The fourth dimension is how we experience the third, and it is a additional cube connected to our original three-dimensional cube. To experience the true nature of these shapes, they have to be moving, or they just look like weird lines. You must pay a certain amount of time to have an experience in the third dimension. Unfolding the cube, we get a cross. Christ symbolizes the crucifixion of consciousness into the physical. To have a human experience, you have to tune out almost everything else in reality. We only experience a certain spectrum of things. This is called the veil of Isis. It's the stimulus in nature that we are tuned to perceive. This takes one main consciousness and fractalizes it into the consciousness that governs your body. This governing consciousness allows you to move your own hand, but not worry about controlling your heartbeat. It is your individual experience here. This allows the brain to process the experience of everything through time. The cube of you connected to the hypercube of time is your life or experience here. Unfolding it, we get something that should look very similar. The cathedral is an unfolded hypercube or tesseract. This architectural layout is called cruciform. It is a material structure that reflects space-time. And that's where the magic happened. It's called the cryptoporticus, or crypt. An initiate would get in something like that after consuming a psychoactive substance. The distributed consciousness in the body gets focused in the mind. Instead of the body resonating with the physical world through the senses, the mind mirrors the architecture of the universe and resonates with that. This can produce what is described as an out-of-body experience. With the mind free to travel outside of the physical body, you can explore the dimensions outside of time. But I'm sure you're thinking of this problem, what if I get lost? Luckily, all proper cathedrals have these. The pipe organ would play soothing, harmonious tones so that the person having the out-of-body experience would still be able to recognize that they had a body because they could hear the music. This is because the ear canal is connected to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is connected to every vital organ in your body. This is why you jump when you hear a loud noise. When you get recubed, you would debrief your experience, tell what you learned, and you would become part of the order.
So, if I understood him correctly, he's telling us to eat shrooms in a church?
There was another cave near there called the Lovelock Cave. Now, these caves, by the way, there's evidence that there was a lot of turbulence. And so Lovelock Cave also was very close to the full pool shoreline of Lake Lahontan. In that cave, in the early 20th century, they found 60 mummies. And they found some evidence of footwear that would have been basically worn by somebody probably in the range of 7'6" tall. So now go back to this farmer. He's excavating and he finds a skeleton. Now, according to the local accounts, and I was actually able to go back to the Lovelock Review, I believe it was called, and found online, they have archives from the 1930s when this rancher was doing this excavation. He discovered a skeleton that may have been of an individual close to 8 feet tall. The final point is that the tribes themselves have ancestral memories of and saying there were giants. There were giants, and in fact, their ancestors fought a war with the giants, and the final standoff between the two groups was there near Lovelock Cave.
But 8 feet is not a giant. We have people that 8.3 in Africa now. I want to see some 20-feet skeletons.
There have been constant reset wars since the fall of Rome, and civilization was much more advanced then. Kingdoms developed organic drone armies and drone workforces. Look. Organic AI, aka slaves. The slave armies eventually revolted. The Huns extorted Rome and were a big contributor of the fall. This was a big part of the migration period where barbarians took over Europe. These are all invasive barbarians. These are not Aboriginal Europeans. War is sexual. It always ends up in crossbreeding. War means confusion, and genetic confusion is a big part of that. Charlemagne is the barbarian king that modern Europeans descend from. Look. That is, of course, if he actually existed. He might just be a concept for the barbarian takeover or represent a group of people. As you can see, the timeline never adds up, and there's much more than 300 years being added. Look. Charlemagne was a barbarian related to the Normans. The fallen Anglos and other barbarians took over brown-skinned Britain, and Britain became completely normalized in the Norman conquest, a drone or clone takeover. That's why Ben Franklin said Europe is swarthy and the drones or clones were the minority by the late 1700s. Then we get the Crusades because the so-called Holy Land is a major choke point for trade, followed by all these other reset wars. Just constant reset wars. It's really been a constant world war for hundreds of years. And the English paid the Prussians to fight France to destroy France's wealth. This made England the superpower of the world. The Revolutionary Wars brought us conscription and total war, which means they started drafting people and destroying everything, not just military installations. The Civil War is a great example of total war. This wasn't a war, they were just destroying the history. Then more reset wars. The revolutions across Europe in 1848 were slave uprisings. It was an attempt to push out the remaining quadroon and mulatto-looking leadership. And again, we have this theme of controlling the supposed Holy Land choke point. That's all the Crimean War was, a choke point war. Same wars being fought today. The 1848 slave uprisings or revolutions are what caused the Franco-Prussian War. This is what caused World War I. World War II is an extension of World War I. The Franco-Prussian War set up the scramble for Africa. A Prussian and a Belgian carved up Africa, setting the stage for World War I. They reset Europe, Asia, and Africa, and they were all selling opium together. And everybody in World War I was cousins. The Bolsheviks reset Russia, and Lawrence of Arabia reset the Middle East. So Britain and France carve up the Middle East so there will be perpetual conflict. So World War II starts in Poland to get Prussia back. And it's funny, the English are just Germans. World War I and II set up the wars of 47 and 48, which are the same wars as today. Then they collapse China into communism to set it up to be a rival today. Then we get dozens of isn't real wars. Look. Which brings us to today. These are mass cullings and financial reset wars. World War has slowed down but has never stopped. These wars are used to control the breeding and general flow of creativity.
The black nobility refers to a series of Roman aristocratic families who have controlled the Roman Catholic Church for more than 1,000 years. The Aldobrandini family are considered members of the black nobility who have produced members of the Rothschild family, numerous cardinals, and at least one pope. After Ippolito Aldobrandini became Pope Clement VIII, he appointed his nephew Pietro as a cardinal and gave him land on Quirinal Hill in Rome, where Pietro began to construct the Quirinal Palace. December 25th, 274 AD, Emperor Aurelian also dedicated a massive temple to Mithra, the unconquered sun, on Quirinal Hill. The cult of Mithras celebrated the birth of their false god on December 25th. The cult of Mithras was a group that believed in the 12 signs of the zodiac, had 7 degrees of initiation linked to planetary spheres, met in temples to perform rituals, called their priests fathers, and even had special handshakes. According to the original Catholic encyclopedia, the fathers of Mithras conducted the worship. The chief of the fathers of Mithras was a sort of pope who always holies lived at Rome and was called Pater Patrum. The ancient cult of Mithras is still alive and well and is still being worked from the top of Kernel Hill by the Pope all the way down to the steps of your local Masonic lodges and Catholic churches. The Mysteries of Mithras is a Masonic order which is inspired by and uses the allegory of the lost and ancient mysteries of the cult of Mithras. The Mithrium Aldobrandini is a 2nd century Roman cult site for Mithras that was discovered on Aldobrandini family property, and it is still not accessible to the public. The cult of Mithras are also infamous for participation in ritual sacrifice, especially using a bull. The central image in every Mithrium, like the one found on the property belonging to the Aldobrandini family, shows Mithras wearing a Pythagorean cap, slaying a bull in a cave. On top of being a pagan holy site to numerous cults, the Quirinal Palace has served as the residence for 30 popes, 4 kings of Italy, 12 presidents of the Italian Republic, and of course, the Aldobrandini family. Aldobrandini itself comes from the word Aldobaran. Aldobaran, the eye of the bull in Taurus, is recognized in esoteric Freemasonry as one of the 4 ancient royal stars. The Aldobrandini family crest even features the 8-pointed star of Ishtar, where we get the modern word Easter. The star of Ishtar is also considered to be the star of Venus. Lucifer is Latin for Venus. According to Dr. Lauren Moret, the name Aldobrandini literally translates to people of the devil. Modern members of the Aldobrandini family today include Princess Olympia Aldobrandini. In 1974, Princess Olympia Aldobrandini married David de Rothschild. Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous sex trafficker, confessed to working for the Rothschilds and by extension the Aldobrandinis. While the Catholic Church in large parts of the world have been led by incestuous members of the black nobility like the Aldobrandinis, who have led secret societies for generations and are literally called the people of the devil, the book of Acts chapter 13 and verse 10 says, "And said, O full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, will thou not cease to pervert the ways of the Lord?"
Impressive amount of research has to go into this. Thank you.
What were the occult secrets behind Nazi classified technology? The Nazi leadership pursued what is described as, quote, occulted science, rejecting Einstein's relativity as, quote, Jewish physics. Unlike the static ether of the 19th century, German physicists like O.C. Hilgenberg and Carl Friedrich Kraft posited a dynamic ether based on rotational and vorticular principles. I also personally subscribe to a dynamic ether model, as I explained in my free book, Occult Physics. The Austrian naturalist Victor Schauberger, inducted into the SS to work on secret weapons, developed theories on implosion, spiraling motion towards a center, to create cooling, condensing energy rather than heat-generating explosion. His repulsing discoid craft utilized these principles to create lift and propulsion through air compression and vortex generation. The most extreme example of this occulted research was a device known simply as the Bell. It is described as being at the very pinnacle of Kammler's secret weapons empire and was classified so highly that the SS executed all the scientists associated with the project at the end of the war. The Bell was a metallic bell-shaped object approximately 9 to 12 feet in diameter and 12 to 15 feet tall. It consisted of 2 counter-rotating cylinders, and the device was filled with a mysterious violet-colored liquid metallic substance codenamed Zerum 525, which was highly radioactive and stored in lead-lined cylinders. The Bell required massive amounts of direct electrical power to operate. When active, the Bell emitted extremely strong radiation or field effects during tests, and organic matter, like plants, animals, and tissues, placed within the Bell's field decomposed rapidly into a blackish goo or dust without normal putrefaction. Several scientists even died during the initial tests. Technicians also reported a metallic taste in their mouths after exposure. The underground testing chamber was lined with ceramic bricks and rubber mats, and the rubber had to be burned and the room washed down with brine by concentration camp inmates after each test. The rotation of radioactive material suggests that the Germans were investigating the inertial and vortex properties of high-speed rotation to generate field effects, possibly related to anti-gravity or time distortion. At the end of the war, the Bell, its documentation, and General Kammler vanished completely.
Did he by any chance change his name, then go work for NASA?
People can live on just air. Look, E equals MC squared, which means energy equals matter. Hydrogen is the foundation of the universe. Hydrogen fusion is the source of light. All elements stem from fusion. Hydrogen fusion is the first fusion. Oxygen is matter. Thus it is energy. It is vibration. Vibrance. Hemoglobin is melanin. It is nearly identical to chlorophyll. Its etymology means purple, like ultraviolet. That's why the blood is bluish purple. You are inhaling energy. Your skin inhales energy. Hemoglobin delivers oxygen to the cells to produce ATP. ATP is what powers your entire body. This is done through cellular respiration. This is how energy is stored and how cells communicate. Through breath, electricity or charge doesn't flow through wires. It flows through the field around them. The ether powers everything. The wires don't power your lights and appliances. The field does. Now we live in Tartaria where we don't use the ether properly. Melanin is an organic semiconductor. It regulates the flow of charge and energy. It has a nanocrystalline structure, so it can insulate and it can conduct. Gold is often found in quartz because that was the basis of the crystalline metallic electric grid of Tartaria. Gold is the conductor, quartz is the insulator. That is why California is the golden state. California is Canaan, which became Israel, the promised land. Silver is the best conductor, and Nevada is the silver state, which was still a part of Canaan. The gold and silver rushes came after the reset war known as the Civil War. It is not a coincidence that metal is synonymous with the lungs in Eastern medicine. The breath conducts the light to the hemoglobin, which powers the body. Tartaria was an ether-powered civilization. Tartaria was an autotrophic or breatharian civilization. They built structures like this, but had no plumbing or sewage system. Do you think they were incapable? After the clones took over, they didn't know how to operate. They were defecating inside of palaces like these. I mean, on the stairs and in the corner of rooms. Same thing with Chicago. It was built up like this, but no sewer system. Perfect grid. Come on. You could build this, but not manage waste. Anyway, static shock is a gain or a loss of electrons to balance energy. People want the euphoria from the static shock, which drops your energy to balance the speed of the charge between you. Looped electricity is magnetism. Habits, or loops, concentrate the magnetic field and bind you to people. Hemoglobin is iron at its core. Iron is Fe. Fe means faith. Literally. Full circulation means full faith. An iron shirt. The breath pumps the blood, which pumps the heart. The chestahedron. The pineal is the heart eye. The breath unlocks it. Unlock your autotrophic faculties.
So, is it beneficial to wear gold and silver on your body?
Could you write individual countries writing treaties with the aliens? The United Nations as a body politic representing mankind, they didn't think that was a good idea. The U.S. government, what lands could you give them? There was no land left because that wasn't claimed. Every area of the earth except Antarctica was claimed. And so they go into these terms. But the thing that bothers me most is that Einstein and Oppenheimer, being Jewish, looked at this phenomena and they came to the conclusion that these aliens were the return of the Elohim. They thought that this alien presence, it just popped into our reality starting in the 1940s, not Roswell, way before. There were crashes in Italy, there were crash recoveries in the 30s, there were crash recoveries in Germany. One house, a steel house, fell from the sky in Turkey in the 1920s. The German archaeologists went to see it and he realized this is not a house. You know, the Turkish farmer who found it said, a steel house. It was a UFO. So they made a deal with the Turkish government and they were able to take it to Germany. So this alien presence has been around, has been in contact with the U.S. government, but now they got notice. We're here to stay and you're going to have to deal with it. So Oppenheimer and Einstein said, these are the old gods of the Old Testament and they've returned and we have to establish a new covenant with them. And they said, we should submit to them for tutelage. They should become our teachers. We have a lot to learn from them. And so they said the U.S. government should write a secret treaty with these aliens and grant them, as I say, settlement, ranging, roaming rights, trade human resources for technology tutelage. You know, a tutor is a teacher who teaches a less bright student. So I object to all of that, and that's why I say that Einstein and Oppenheimer betrayed the human race. And they are, it's a culling. They need space. So what's going to happen? They have to get rid of population. is to make more space for an expanding alien civilization that is here. It's not coming, it's already here.
You want a real rabbit hole? We're going to Turkey. Turkey has some of the wildest stuff on the planet, hands down. Who makes it? Look at this. This is Eagle Castle. I'm probably butchering that name, but does that not look like a pillar to you? Like a giant pillar? That's huge. That's what people, look at the boat. There's a rock-cut monastery that you can go inside, just like the one in Ethiopia. When you go inside this one, it's decorated head to toe like a cathedral. Turkey is ancient. We have megalithic architecture and rock-cut temples in Sorna, the city of oracles, and the ancient theater of Side rivals the Colosseum in Rome. It's insane. Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe are also in Turkey. These two push civilization back 5,000 years from what we thought. They were buried really fast, like something was happening outside. The fact that every ancient culture has a flood myth would make Derinkuyu make sense. It's an 8-story underground city with locking doors, water access, and air vents. 20,000 people can live in this city, and it is connected by a 5-mile-long tunnel to Kemakli, another underground city, forming a network of over 200 underground cities in Turkey. Next door neighbor, Armenia, has a megalithic avenue similar to Karnak in France, making this whole area the most mysterious thing I've ever seen. Have fun with that rabbit hole.
Mind blown.
The black nobility refers to a series of Roman aristocratic families who have controlled the Roman Catholic Church for more than 1,000 years. The Conti family are considered members of the black nobility who have produced numerous cardinals, 4 popes, and even leaders of Freemasonry. Pope Innocent III was a member of the Conti family who was infamous for organizing the Fourth Crusade to capture Jerusalem. Pope Innocent III also practiced nepotism and appointed several of his relatives as cardinals to secure his authority. The most prominent of his cardinal nephews was Ugolino de' Conti, who later became Pope Gregory IX. Louis Francis de Bourbon, Prince of Conti, was born in Paris, and in 1731 he married his cousin. Prince Conti was also a leader of the Freemasonic Grand Lodge of France, also known as the Grand and Sovereign Lodge of St. John of Jerusalem in Paris. In 1761, Prince Conti was listed in the history of Scottish Rite Freemasonry as leading the Council of Grand Inspectors General. It is also said that Prince Conti was a flagrant homosexual and did not pay much attention to his wife. Prince Conti, the homosexual Freemason, was also appointed to serve as the Grand Prior to the Knights of Malta. Modern members of the Conti family include Paul Conti and Fulvio Conti. Email records released by the Department of Justice indicate that Paul Conti, a prominent Portland psychiatrist, socialized with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein in 2015 and corresponded with him through at least 2017. Quote, "It is no surprise that you are a fascinating guy to talk to," Conti wrote in a message dated October 20th, 2015. Quote, "If you are ever interested in meeting again under whatever circumstances you might prefer, please let us know." In this and other emails around that time, the two discussed whether Conti might treat a friend and likely victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. A statement from Jeffrey Epstein's American Express Centurion card shows on November 11th, 2015, $4,000 payment was made to Conti's company. It also lists a $1,000 payment made a week later and a $1,200 payment made soon after that, directly implicating the Conti family in the affairs of sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Fulvio Conti, the chief executive officer of Italy's largest power company called Enel, was also awarded the National Italian Americans Foundation Special Achievement Award in International Business by none other than registered sex offender John Podesta himself. While the Catholic Church had been led by incestuous members of the black nobility like the Conti family, who have used insidious means such as wars, nepotism, and secret societies like the Freemasons to achieve a firm grip on society, even collaborating with sex offenders like Jeffrey Epstein and John Podesta, we must remember that the people are not the problem, but rather the institutions they belong to and the sin they are promoting. We must stop the Catholic Church and free her prisoners from her sins before it's too late. Luke chapter 4 and verses 18 through 19 say, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath appointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty of them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord."
I want to know about the current Pope because his research is amazing.
Did you know that these guys were all high on a substance very similar to LSD? Hey, I'm Batuhan Bintash. I was one of the DMT volunteers at Imperial College. Join me in exploring the history of psychedelics. The foundation of the Western philosophy wasn't actually built on logic, but on psychedelic smoothie. Meet Kaikion. For over 2,000 years, the greatest minds in the history headed to a secret festival in Eleusis in Greece, and they drank a mysterious brew called Kaikio. On paper, it was just barley and mint, but modern researchers think the barley was infested with ergot, exactly the same fungus used for synthesizing LSD. Plato literally wrote that because of this ritual, he lost his fear of death and saw the true nature of reality. Think about that. The allegory of the cave might not have been a metaphor. It might have been an actual trip report. Was Plato's Republic a masterpiece of logic or just a really intense psychedelic peak experience? Maybe the secret to genius isn't more studying. Perhaps it's experiencing life from a different perspective. If you want to learn more about the quirky historical facts about the unspoken psychedelic use, join our online course. Comment webinar and I'll send you the invitation link.
Breaking news, a 1 million acre, they're calling it now, wildfire in Nebraska, which basically affects, the entire grain, meat, and even water supply in the United States. Now, I'm sure this fire is completely organic and happened by chance, but it is an interesting lineup and lead up of things that are all lining up, which seemingly is affecting the food supply, most notably the Strait of Hormuz being closed, which is stopping a bajillion pounds of fertilizer from going through it. Now, I'm sure this has nothing to do with the plan to reinvent the food system, because, in order to make a totally new food system, you probably would have a better chance if you destroyed the old food system, right? But I'm sure it's nothing. Now, look, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that there's a plan to chemicalize and weaken us with the contaminants in the food, air, and water supply. Most notably, what is being sprayed in our skies, which is just condensation officially, but makes you wonder. And if you think you should be...
And Bill Gates and crew bought so much farmland for what? Order out of chaos.
Because there's something going on in Peru. It's a great mystery with a polygonal stone wall. Little pieces of stone interlocked together. It makes absolutely no sense until you step back and apply an esoteric lens and start to look in the symbolism of the stone. The stone has a language itself. There's actually even a poster there in Cusco where they have the serpent. So the stones are put together in a way, animals and vegetation, okay? But the shapes themselves are very unusual. And when you look at it, how a lot of it is andesite rock. Not only get the cuts, what's mind-boggling is how they put the stone together in the first place to lock everything together. And this is still a big mystery for people. The alternative space is a lot of different theories, but how they actually shape the andesites. And so there are accounts of the Spanish, the early explorers in South America that are referencing
the Nephilim were playing Tetris.
This is absolute madness. Have you seen the mermaid tomb footage that is making millions of people afraid of what is actually buried beneath our feet? A series of truly incredible clips just surfaced online, and they are already shaking the entire world. At first, it looks like a normal urban exploration video, a person with a camera navigating through narrow, ancient catacombs. But look closer at the walls, because as the traveler enters a hidden high-security chamber, the atmosphere turns cold. In the center lies a tomb, but the body inside isn't human. It's a mummified creature with jagged, predatory teeth, strange wiry hair, and a massive, leathery tail where legs should be. This isn't a fairy tale. This looks like the actual remains of a legendary siren. But here's the part that is sending a chill through the internet. 'Cause minutes after this footage was uploaded, the author completely vanished. Their account has been stripped of everything except this single video. If you don't believe me, search Mermaid Tomb Catacombs and watch it yourself. But what do you think was really found in that chamber?
That's Travis Scott.
Hang on, it's 111. Does your Bible have an image of a tombstone of somebody that actually walked through the garden of God? Well, mine does.
Well,
and
mine
that's next
does.
on the trumpet. That's the tomb of King Hiram of Tyre. Somewhere between building the palace for David and the temple for Solomon, he made a cruise through the garden of God. King Hiram built that house on top of Mount Zion. And he built Solomon's temple. Come on, you can take Google Earth right to it. King Hiram's tomb's right there. Zoom in, you'll find out that even when you push the little guy, it won't show you anything. King Hiram of Tyre. It says, Son of man, talk to the king of Tyre. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. It was in Eden. It's got so many pictures in it, like a lot.
Wow.
I put all the maps from 1839 in the back of it. See where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is right there by the temple and by the pool in ancient Jerusalem? That was the tomb of David. The pictures are in the middle of it and the maps are at the very end. And that's all gilded parchment paper and that's all leather. It's the same Apocrypha that was put out by the Pope when he changed us all over to the Gregorian calendar. And that copy is directly from 1582. The photographs are mostly from the 1830s to the 1890s. I took those digital images straight out of this Bible. Use the prints. Among the other apocryphal writings of the Old Testament, the books that may be enumerated with them are the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch 1. And in the New Testament Apocrypha, that one right there, the Gospel of Nicodemus and the Descent into the Underworld. That's the big Bible, that's the Codex, and that's the people that got both. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and sup with him and he with me. That's my shipping and receiving department. I'm going to teach my grandson how to make a Bible too. You need to know that that happened about 2,000 years ago, and Jesus Christ descended into the lower parts of the earth and locked the devil away for 2,000 years. No man knoweth the day or time of his return, but you better know the seasons. Go to my bio page and click on that right there. Then right there, and it'll take you right to it. And then these are all the study guides that I put out for our weekly study. Lots of cool things there. Awesome things to read on the Sabbath while you're resting in the Lord. And if you don't want to read it, I'll read it for you. You know me and my family love you, so like and follow the trumpet for more. And in Jesus' name, have a blessed day.
Man, I want to get that book.
Two finds over here, ancient books from 1850 right here. The Power of Water talks all about how you can use water to create energy and electricity. But, you know, we never learned about that. And then this one, I never in my life thought I could find this book. This book goes into talking about the color blue and how you would put the color blue in your greenhouse or in front of your plants, and they will grow 3 to 4 times the size. And this will be in my book, actually. I'll be writing about this, but I'll just turn the page. I don't want to... And you can see that they even used blue ink in this one. And look at, this is from 1876. And check that. Window panes with blue glass to amplify plant growth.
Love seeing those old books with real science in it.
Help us. What exactly is an orb? Most photographers will tell you that an orb is nothing more than a refraction, a reflection, be it a particle of sand in the air or just light. However, in the metaphysical community, there is a strong belief that orbs could actually be spirits. Light beings that are manifesting, giving us a high five or a signpost to let us know that they are there, that they exist. Some even believe they're able to interpret the colors and or the patterns. Many people even report seeing orbs when they go to a cemetery. What do you guys think? Dust, orbs. Dust, orbs. Leave a comment.
Dust.
Here it is again. World Health Organization. Prepare for what's coming. Let's check out what is coming. Oh, well, what's this? Energy lockdown has started. Let's look further into it. I see this oil price right here. Let's go further into it. All right, well, check this out. The International Energy Agency published an energy lockdown. Alternating driving days based on license plates, mandatory speed limit. Let's keep looking. 3, avoid air travel where alternatives exist. That's most places. Switch from gas cooking to electric. Work from home. Does this all sound familiar? Does it? It's the exact same playbook, but even harsher the second time around. So we cannot be playing games with this one. And it's coming. There's no stopping this energy crisis that they created. Isn't that fucking funny? They created it, and now we have to deal with it. It's how it always fucking goes. Entertainment purposes only.
It started already. That's crazy.